Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I am in Yountville, California, in the heart of Napa Valley with Craig Becker, who is the co-founder, general manager, winemaker, head of viticulture. He does it all at Somerston Estate and Priest Ranch Wines. Craig, welcome, and tell us about Somerston Estate and Priest Ranch Wines and the whole grand story of how that works out.
Oh, great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much. Somerston Estate is an amazing property that our singular focus is becoming one of the great wine estates in the United States and the world. And it's composed of two properties, Priest Ranch, historic Priest Ranch, settled in 1869 by James Joshua Priest. And then our neighboring Elder Valley property, which we purchased Priest Ranch in 2004, Elder Valley in 2005. And so combined, it's 1,682 acres, of which about 13% are grapevines. So we only have about 244 acres.
Thank you for doing the math for me.
What's really amazing about this place is it's sort of Napa Valley natural, where you're not just seeing all vineyards. It's mainly 87% is woodlands, grasslands. It's a very beautiful, beautiful place. And so, like I said, our focus is to become one of the great wine estates.
And where exactly are the vineyards, the estates located, and what varieties do you have planted there?
So we're in the eastern hills. In Napa Valley, we were flanked on the east by the Vaca mountain range, on the west by the Mayakama mountain range. So we're in the northeastern side of the Vaca. And Vaca's an old volcanic structure where a lot of the soils have high sandstone and slate. So it's great for growing grapes because there's no organic material. And the vines struggle. And we specialize now in Cabernet Sauvignon. And we have all 5 border varieties planted. We have fun grapes like Grenache Blanc planted there. We have a reservoir, and all reservoirs leak. And so below the reservoir, I planted Grenache Blanc, which you're not trying to get the skins ripe. And it makes a really fun, beautiful wine.
I'm sipping it now.
We do a little Petit Syrah, which mainly gets sold to the prisoner, and Sauvignon Blanc.
Wow. So you're selling a little fruit, but what you're making is 100% estate fruit?
Everything's 100% estate grown, produced, and bottled.
Wow. And what's your total case production?
Well, in 2020, we were scheduled to produce right around 22,000 cases. But because of the fire that hit Hennessy, Gamble, and 1015 fire, we had no vintage. Smoke damage to all the grapes. So this year we're looking at about 28,000 cases.
Wow. I'm really sorry about 2020, but you have 2018 available, 2019, and you will have 2021. So
and we lost the 17 vintage as well.
You did.
Smoke damage. So it's twice in 4 years. It's challenging.
It is.
But for us, we've been growing. So what's the right positive spin on that is that we have wine.
Yes.
It's not like we're going to run out. It's just it's challenging to lose that much of your crop, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, for the wine that is available and the wine that will continue to be available, is it available across the country in different markets? Are you primarily direct to consumer or a nice mix?
Pre-COVID, we were about 30% direct to consumer. Post-COVID, we're 70% direct to consumer. The wholesale market's lightening up again, which is great, but we're in 15 export markets, 36 states. We've got great distribution, and we've got a lot of partners that really understand that the authenticity of a vertically integrated wine company, where we control the source, we make it on site, we sell it. There's touch points all along the way. So our partners are pretty excited about our growth.
So, Craig, what is your first memory relevant to wine?
Well, as a kid, I always had that really small wine glass at the table.
Oh, really?
But more importantly, my sister and I would always chagrin when we go skiing in Tahoe. And we're from LA, Orange County. And my parents would do this 3-hour detour off of I-5. We would go down I-5, but they'd come on Highway 80, drive up to Napa, and we knew this was going to happen because they'd always have these jugs in the back of the van that were empty, and they come up to Napa Valley and fill the jugs up at
Wow.
Martini and other wineries. This is in the 70s and early 80s. And then we drive back to I-5. So for us, it was a total bummer. But that's why I first saw, the wine world. And my parents introduced us to it, indirectly, that they came to get their wine.
Wow. So obviously many years passed from those days where you were rolling your eyes like, oh God, no more vineyard stops. And as you got into wine, is there a particular wine, and I'm sure you have many, but is there one particular wine that stands out as an aha moment that set you on your path or changed your mind about a variety or focused something? Just one of those wines that really stood out to you. Can you share which one that is, or one of them?
I don't know if I had a serious aha moment. I did in terms of getting out of what I was doing in terms of genetic engineering, and getting into taking my plant physiology onto the grape world. But I realized that there was a difference in quality of wines when I first tried Cellar. Mm-hmm. And my wife at the time was assistant winemaker at Schransberg, or enologist at Schransberg. And that's fantastic bubbles, like really great bubbles. And then I tried Cellar, and I was blown away, which is a vintage, not every vintage. It's related to Laurent Perrier. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And just seeing that, okay, so these bubbles are different. Like, really, what makes that different? And I still don't know what makes it different, but there's a reason why it's not produced every year. It's only on exceptional vintages. And so seeing that kind of difference between really great bubbles versus like the best bubbles.
Right.
It's pretty interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, Cellar is one of those hard things to get your hands on.
It's expensive. It's probably $300 a bottle now, right?
Absolutely.
That's just retail, not at a restaurant.
Well, speaking of expensive bottles, do you have any special gems in your cellar, or what would we find in your home cellar? Is it a lot of Napa wine, a lot of your own wine, or a lot of Cellar that you've hidden there?
It's a loaded question. Primarily because our neighborhood burnt down in the second fire this last year.
Ooh.
And so our house is one of the amazing ones that didn't burn. We finished building our home in 2008. And so part of the renovation of the smoke damage, we completely got rid of all of our wine cellar. So everything I've been making for the last 23 years, gave it to all of our employees, and we just said we're starting over. So I actually have no wine cellar at the moment. Huh. And it's kind of refreshing because it probably wasn't stored exactly properly in our basement, but we're going to start over. And so it's kind of a we're putting in a basement fan so we can store it properly, and we're going to start collecting again. And so we did have wines from mainly Napa, Sonoma. I'm a big Pinot fan. I love Pinot. Limited Chardonnay fan, although I make some Chardonnay. Bubbles are obviously something we drink a lot of, so there wasn't much in inventory.
Of course not.
No, but I love Chablis. It's one of my fans from France and the Rhone Valley. I'm a huge fan of Gigondas and Baccarat, and that area is fantastic. And I've done Découvert, the tour of the Rhone Valley, twice now, and so I buy some of those wines. So yeah, we have zero wine cellar. Huh. Which is kind of neat. It's like a new start, and I can tell you what, our vineyard employees are drinking some great stuff.
Well, it's interesting, it's a perspective on, priorities, right? I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people who have come through the fires and said, I'm not going to hold on to things. I'm just going to enjoy it or give it away. So as you build your new cellar, are you going to stick with that kind of focus of what you have, or is there anything else you think you'll start adding to it?
I don't know. We haven't. We hope to be home in 2.5 months. We're staying out Somerston right now, which has been awesome. But yeah, I don't know. My wife's allergic to reds now, so that it'll be kind of slightly tilted towards rosés and whites and bubbles. But I love my reds as well. So.
Is there any particular wine you drank recently that drank really well? You opened?
I'm a big fan of Continuum. It's really good wine. Tim Mondavi does a great job.
So I know that, you said your wife isn't able to drink red wine, but you as a wine drinker, red, white, or rosé?
All three.
Okay. Still or sparkling?
Sparkling if I can.
And I assume that's Champagne, or are you interested in other regions, domestic and international?
I love some Michigan bubbles. There's some really good stuff in Michigan. Traverse City has got some pretty awesome, and that climate kind of matches. It's a similar parallel as Champagne, and I think that those, people trying to make Cabernet or Cab Franc out of that area, it's a challenge. But the bubbles I've had from there when I've been working there and take some time off and going, a lot of these people own restaurants and wineries, so you go taste at the winery and you happen to try their bubbles. It's pretty interesting. But no, I like domestic. I mean, it's Strasbourg's a go-to. It's really, really good. Roeder is awesome as well, especially the stuff from Mendocino that's estate. But then, we can go international and Paul Roger and other fun stuff that's not too expensive, but just delicious.
Yeah. Ooh, so many great bubbles out there. Yeah. So do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
There is. And I think it's a pretty easy question to answer, because there's no perfect variety for everyone, but for a site, what you have to think about for that perfect variety is when you take a particular site and you take the climate of that site, you take kind of the varietal that would best fit that site and the climate, and then the potential of the team to actually grow it. So the perfect variety is really based on the perfect site and the perfect microclimate for that site. So for us in Napa Valley, where we are, we grow exceptional Cabernet Sauvignon because it's actually cooler up in the hills. And we have hot daytime temperatures, about 1 or 2 degrees warmer than the valley floor here. But then we cool off dramatically, 40 to 50 degrees every night from the high temperature. So, and I'm living out there, and it gets cold at night. We're still in the high 30s right now at night. So it's the perfect variety is really about the site and the microclimate and what you can do. There is no, I'm not going to say Cabernet's it or Chardonnay's it, but there's a reason why they don't grow Cabernet in Sonoma Coast. It's too cold. And there's a reason why we don't grow Chardonnay at Somerston. It's too hot. But we can grow Great Grenache Blanc because it's used to that kind of climate. It likes that warm temperature. And if you adjust the crop properly, you can actually get great acidity and great balance and a nice low pH.
I like that answer. Perfect variety for a place. So talking about place, and even better that you've been living on the property, you're surrounded by the vines. How often are you walking through the vines? Are you walking through them more now that you're living on the property, or are you used to walking through them all the time? And what sort of things, predictors, are you looking for, or are there predictors that will tell you what a harvest is going to give you?
Well, we're too early in the season right now. And yes, I walked the vines when I was not living there, but now it's different. So after work, the families, we go on a walk every night, or we should go on a walk every night. And so walking with the family and the kids, I have 3 daughters, it's just a different experience. It's, not necessarily walking through each vine row, but it's, we're noticing stuff and looking for stuff. In terms of predictors, you really have to wait and see what set brings. And sets, first, we're just about to get into flowering. We're not quite there yet. See what the set looks like. And then from there, the challenge this year is we have no water. We have enough water for about 4 or 5 more waterings of the entire vineyard, and then we're out of water. So, these kind of drought years tend to produce really concentrated fruit, and typically very high quality fruit.
Interesting. So as you walk through the vineyards, do you talk to your vines? Have you been known to talk to them, or do you get the kids talking to them?
We don't talk to vines.
No. Do you talk to your wine when it's in a barrel?
So if remember that the vineyards are an ecosystem. And so if we're talking to the vines, we're not hearing the birds chirp, all the other stuff that goes on at an estate like this. I mean, I was telling our owner that I didn't realize the dating game that went on with the red-tailed hawks and all the other birds that are around, the wildlife, the fox, the bobcats, the mountain lions, the bears. So no, we don't talk to the vines. We think about them a lot, but we don't talk to them.
So as you've worked here for many years, have you established any sort of rituals that you do at the start of harvest for yourself personally, or maybe for your team?
Yeah, harvest party.
Harvest party?
That's big. That's a big one. We didn't do one last year because of COVID. So we're excited. We're doing it in August this year. And it's really a celebration of not just the season, but a thank you to the team, because our team is super important to us. And giving back to them and saying thank you. And we do silly stuff like guacamole competition or salsa competition. Everybody votes, and we have little beans you put in the little things, and winners get cash, and it's kind of fun. And actually, a couple of years, the rule is you're not supposed to buy store-bought. So then when a winner's selected, and it's like, okay, well, I bought this at the store. It's like, come on. Okay, you're disqualified, first of all, but
Absolutely.
Jesus. I mean, the rules are you don't buy it at the store.
How hard is it to buy some avocados and mash them up?
Well, but to make it really good, is,
Sure.
and there's 30 of them out there, you see a difference there, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of seeing a difference in food and flavors, and I don't know how well guacamole and salsa pairs with Cabernet, but how do you look at food and wine pairing? What do you look for tips, certain things that will say to you, oh, this will work together? Or do you think there are rules to follow? Or do you just open up a beautiful bottle of Priest Ranch Cabernet and have your guacamole and salsa?
Good question. So I've traveled enough where I've realized that the food and wine pairing thing is important for a lot of people, but I've also had all the myths shattered. In other words, I've been in Tokyo and had amazing sushi with, 200 a bottle of Somerston Cabernet. And often people don't think sushi and Cabernet work, but it was really good and it worked perfectly. So I think the food and wine pairing is really for the adventurous side, where people are trying to be guided on kind of a path, or a journey is probably a better word, where they want to be shown the possibilities of what food and wine can be. And I think there's some merit to that for sure. But for example, Valentine's Day, we ran a program here that we did via social media, and we had 3 days sold out tastings of chocolate and wine. Personally, I don't think chocolate goes with wine. It's too sweet. But we had 300 reservations, and 300 groups thought it was perfect. So I think that the food and wine thing shouldn't be as, it should be more, it's more subjective than being objective. It's really like, what do you want to explore? So, and I'm kind of a fan of, I mean, Grenache Blanc with a steak, no problem.
Really? Well, my mouth is watering from the Grenache Blanc, so a steak sounds great right now. So, as you were saying, you like to experiment with food and wine pairing, and the rules are sort of out the door. Like, there are no rules. Try and you might be surprised. So how do you feel about wine critics and scores, and how that plays into how we look at wine?
I think wine critics are obviously very important, but they're becoming less important. And I think they would probably admit that as well. The social media, the different apps that are going on. There's one critic who really thought the 18s were just too tannic across the board in Napa Valley. And every review he did, he wrote about the tannin structure. But it's their own opinion. I think that there's some people who taste blind, and we do that at Somerston as well. It's especially when you come up with a blend, you got to make sure that you're not just attached to it because you blended it up. You got to taste it blind and make sure it's the best wine. So I wish that more critics would do that. They would actually taste blind, so they're not saying, this is my friend's winery. They've been getting 100 points, let's just give them another 100 points. So anyway, I think that they have an important level. And how does the consumer, I can tell you right now, if you're under 40, you don't know who Robert Parker is. It's just not relevant anymore.
Right.
But for people over 40, sure, it is. We've been around it, we know, and a lot of people don't realize James Lowley's retired.
Yeah.
Who's that guy? Well, he's made a lot of brands, honestly.
Yeah.
They built a pretty awesome reputation. So the media is really important. I like to stay positive about that. But again, they're probably fighting for their own market share.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone wants to get heard and seen, and everyone's trying, and it's a crowded field out there. So, for somebody who hasn't had the pleasure to taste Priest Ranch wines yet, what do you think they're missing out on? How does this stand out with other wines in that crowded field?
Well, for example, in Yountville here, we're the only estate grown, produced, and bottled tasting room. You know, we do have a winery and a vineyard, obviously, out off Sage Canyon Road. And so when you are an estate and you control the fruit, our promise is that year after year and we've replanted half the vineyard, so we've made a big investment to get better at what we're doing, that we continue to improve quality, but also the promise of a better vintage next year and another vintage next year. And over time, that builds trust. And so what makes a brand is that people trust it. There's a reason why Silver Oak has their wild release days, because people are clamoring for that wine because they trust it. And, you know, unlike them, you know, we're an estate, and I mean, Silver Oak's an estate as well, but there are people that trust that brand. And so ultimately that's the return on investment for us and customers, is that they build trust in the wines and know that they're going to be consistently really good. Initially, in the start, we weren't. We didn't. We had some hiccups with fruit that wasn't great, stuff we didn't sell that we made into wine, and we made plenty of mistakes. But the last 5 years, we've been on a real roll with our redevelopment started in 2012, and so now 2021. So we're on our way to making. I mean, our issue is going to be we have too much really great fruit, and so how do you make that into wine that's significantly unique and different?
So if space aliens were to land on your property, maybe not here in the tasting room, but they arrive at the Somerston Estate, which of your wines would you want to present to them as a welcome to Somerston Estate and Priest Ranch wines?
Well, make a Brut Rosé. They can try that. It's made out of Syrah. It's really fun. It's made in the traditional method. It's got about 2 years on Terroir, and it's a good way to say hi. And we often greet people with that kind of a wine.
I've had it. It's quite tasty. And a bottle at home. So tell me something. When you were a little boy, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Pilot.
A pilot. Did you get close to it? Ever?
Pretty close.
Yeah? But ended up a geneticist.
No. My Nana, her house was 2 blocks from Long Beach Airport. So whenever we went over to Nana's house, I would ride the bike. And this is before there were fences at airports. And that was a big production factory for Long Beach in terms of producing airplanes. And I'd just sit at the end of the runway and watch planes land and take off. And so I always wanted to do it. And, I did end up getting my pilot's license in 2003. And I started consulting around the state for different vineyards and making wine. So I owned a Cessna 182, which was really fun. And I call it a minivan with a Ferrari engine. It was really fun. And so
you just fly yourself off to another vineyard?
You go to work. It was great. It was really fun.
I bet you had no traffic.
Though there's traffic, it's just different kind of traffic. Flying in the Bay Area is not easy because it's all Class A or Class B airspace.
Well, at least you didn't have to deal with windy roads.
No. Not until you landed.
So when you're not working, how do you like to spend your free time?
Gardening, trying to disconnect a little more, be with the family. One of the things working so hard is that you realize that you need to spend more time with your kids. I've got my first daughter going off to college, and it's like, wow, she's going to leave in 4 months. And so realizing family time is really important. And we have a huge garden at home, and that's fun. I'm a woodworker. I love woodworking. We built our own house, not by ourselves, but with some help, but it was great. So biking, hiking, that kind of stuff.
I'm not sure how you have the time to build a house and bike and hike and spend time with the family and manage all the vineyards. And
and we're, like I said, I'm managing the redo right now from the smoke damage, and just do it.
Wow. And big fan of any sports teams or any different sports?
The Niners were on such a downfall for so many years that I became a wanderer. I know.
You lost your loyalty?
I did. So I started watching teams that were good, whether it's Seattle, Green Bay, the Patriots. People hate that word, Patriots. But I've enjoyed all kinds. But the Niners are back, and so I'm kind of a loyal when they win kind of guy, which is not very fair. But the Niners are great. I love watching them. And then, we're partnered up with the Warriors here at Priest Ranch. And so it's been really fun to watch them. And they're on tonight at 7. Their first, they haven't been in the playoffs in 2 years now, which, we're used to seeing them win the championship. So that's exciting.
So the Warriors, you're partnered up with them. So clearly they drink Priest Ranch wines.
Yes, they love it.
So I'm curious, when they win a game or a championship, which of your wines would you, aside from the celebratory sparkling wine, which of your wines would you want to gift to them as a congratulations?
Like snake oil, something like a snake oil would be great, which is 100% cab. Comes from 5 different blocks that are about 25, 30 years old. And they probably love the name too.
I like it.
But sports doesn't really, with the players anyway, they can't really align with any kind of alcohol product. So it's really the Warriors,
sure,
not the individuals.
Right. No, the team would receive this.
Right.
So when you have a spare moment and you want to plan a romantic evening for you and your wife, what sort of wines set for a romantic evening? Does she works in the wine industry as well? Not anymore, but also comes from wine. So you're both pretty savvy about wine. So what makes for a romantic evening that intrigues you both?
Glass of bubbles. And we've had bubbles a lot here in this conversation, but bubbles are fun. Or like, fun Chenin Blanc or something that's not, we don't drink Chardonnay. Sauvignon Blanc, if it's good, yes. But something like a bubbles would be fun.
Yeah. So when you think about all the, we've all been given good pieces of advice or words of wisdom throughout our years, from our childhood to our adulthood. We have mentors, we have parents, we have teachers, we have, coworkers. Is there a piece of advice that you were given at any point that you really tried to live your life by or apply to your work?
Yeah, it's really the same advice I give to my team and their spouses. So they've asked me a lot of questions because of what I've achieved in my career. And it's don't seek money, seek opportunity. And so coming out of college, I had 3 job offers. One was a vineyard manager at Gallo-Sonoma, working under Bob. The other one was assistant winemaker at Gallo-Sonoma, working under Gina. Both were very well-paying jobs, and I took a $12 an hour job at Spring Mountain Vineyard because I knew I would see so much more. I'd get the wine experience as well as the vineyard experience. And so when recently one of our employees asked about his wife's new opportunity, and they're asking about salary range, I said, just walk in there and say that you're not here about the salary, you're about the opportunity. And she got the job, and she got more money than she wanted.
Wow. So
just seeking opportunity is how you learn and how you build that skill set, that toolbox.
Wow, that's really good advice. And I'm in full agreement. You have to be open to opportunities and seize the ones that are right for you. So when you look back at your career, we're not talking about family here, but when you look back at your career, what would you say is one of your proudest achievements to date? With a long future ahead of you and many more achievements to come, but when you look back, what are you proudest of?
Tough question, actually. All right, so on an anecdotal note, when our marketing manager asked me to cook her wedding meal for 150 people, what an honor that was, which we had a blast, and of course other employees jumped in and helped out as well. But just having that, seeing employees grow, like building a company where you actually get to see people become and grow, buy homes, have kids, get married, it's awesome. So it's not one single thing, but it's definitely seeing, and why do you do what you do every day? Because wine, we're not saving the world, we're trying to create joy, but it's really about the people that are behind it and how can I make a difference in my community with our people that live here. And it's an honor, it's awesome, it's really cool.
Wow, and you cook. You must be a really good cook if you were asked to cook for 150 people.
I'm okay.
Clearly, you're a ringer in the guacamole and salsa competition.
No, I don't. We don't enter that.
Because you'd win.
No, actually, trust me, no. There's some amazing stuff. In fact, it's one of those days where it's like, I don't really eat like that anymore with chips, but you have to try all these salsas, and we get really Casa chips from Sonoma. There's a right off the square, there's a Mexican restaurant that makes the best chips, I think, ever. So we buy huge bags of those, and you end up having more chips than you want, but it's really fun. So no, we don't enter that stuff. It's for the employees.
You save your cooking. You save your cooking for 150-person weddings.
Yes.
So complete this sentence for me. A table without wine is like.
It's like a table without wine. And wine's one of those things where it's not for everyone. Mm-hmm. And so maybe there's beer, maybe there's cocktails. An example would be one of our related businesses has an in-house contractor, and his son's great, and he never drank wine before. And he was recently out at the property. They're doing some work on our road, and he said, "Craig, I had a bottle of that double barrel." This is a non-wine drinker. And he said, "Man, I didn't realize I drank the whole thing, and I went and passed out in my bed." It's like, really, off one bottle? So a table without wine is a table that there's opportunity to try it. But not everybody likes wine, and it's okay to say that. And they're not wrong for not having it, but I think there's always an opportunity there. And so now he came back to the winery and bought 5 cases of wine. I was like, okay, I hope you make it to bed. But it's really, that's the thing about wine that's fun, there's a reveal, right? People, unless you're celiac like my daughter, everybody's had beer. Mm-hmm. And beer's a journey as well. There's the whole craft thing's amazing, and there's all kinds of stuff. But wine's the same kind of a journey that you can go from having no wine at a table to next thing you know, you're trying to get your somm.
Yeah.
Because it's a journey.
So a table without wine is just an empty table waiting for wine to be put on it.
Yeah.
So now I want you to imagine a scenario. I mean, it's not too hard to imagine. We're sitting at a table. We've got chairs around it. There's an empty seat next to you. Who from any walk of life, living or deceased, famous or personal, would you love to see enjoying a bottle of Priest Ranch wines with you?
David Brooks, New York Times. I think he's amazing, brilliant. I don't know if he drinks wine. My guess is he might. But he's definitely been a steady horse in this last 8 years of craziness. Mm-hmm. And it'd be fun to break bread with him and drink some wine.
I like that. So, we're sitting here. You've gone through fires. You've lived through that, and it's affected your life personally and professionally. Do you think we're going to be drinking wine in 500 years' time? I mean, not you and me per se, but, do you think wine will still be a part of our culture in that time?
Remember that fermented products are what helped civilization grow. There was a point where that's how beer started. I mean, it was you ferment the water so you get rid of the bugs. So I think so. I don't know what form it'll be in. 400 years ago, wine wasn't about how good can it be. It was just make it. Mm-hmm. And some were better than others and stuff like that. And now it's really about how good can it be. Will that fall off the cliff and it just become wine again? I'm not sure. With climate change and other factors, I don't know. But I think there'll always be a niche for fermented products, for sure. And wine's one of them.
And if unfortunately that was not the case and you were sent off to a deserted island and this was the end, what 3 wines would you want to take with you?
Well, they all be bubbles and they require sushi. And I'd be happy.
Okay.
That's it. Rosé, a brut of some sort, and probably some Grenache Blanc.
Okay. So, you're almost finished. Now we play a little game where we pair wine with music. Not too much pressure on you, but I've been enjoying your beautiful 2018 Grenache Blanc as we've been talking. Beautiful acidity, gorgeous aromatics. What kind of music or song does this wine make you think of? What, the way wine makes us feel a certain way, what does the music conjure up in you?
Well, I have 3 daughters. And so one of my new favorite songs, this is really cheesy coming from a 49-year-old guy, Taylor Swift's new song, Perfectly Fine. which I don't know if you've heard it before, but it's great. It really kind of, talks about how he's gone on and moved on, and, he's perfectly fine and Mr. Perfect, and why he's breaking her heart, he's moving on. And I think that this wine is perfectly fine. And it's a fun, unique wine, and when we do a competitive set tasting, this wine shines, and we do it blind. And our competitors, in terms of mainly from the Paso Robles area and SLO and that kind of stuff, I think this is a perfect wine.
And then we have your 2018 Cabernet Sauvignon. This is the snake oil. Haha.
Yeah, snake oil's fun. Snake oil's
got to taste a little bit of this. Beautiful color. So, what do you think?
Snake oil kind of relates to, I think, an artist I really like called Aaron Lewis. Aaron Lewis was in a band called Strand, and as soon as his contract was up, I don't know the full details, but he went back to country. And he sings a song where he relates to the bar as his church, and Whiskey and Me it's called. And it's really funny that, in some ways you can take an experience of drink and make it like a holy experience. And I think that's one of the fun things about snake oil is it's also a pun on the word. It's not a sold by a medicine man, and it's not snake oil was kind of this tincture that was put together to cure all, which actually says that on the box. It says cure all, a cure for all. But we're a real place. And, I came up with this name. Actually didn't come up with the name, but I named this wine after going into many, many wine shops, hundreds of wine shops, and realizing that, 80% of these wines are not from a particular place. They're owned by 4 or 5 wine companies, and it's all marketing. And one of the things I think is awesome about being part of an authentic wine brand is that we have a place, we have a vineyard, we can show you that place, and it comes from a certain spot. So snake oil is kind of fun because it's a play on and my marketing team was not into it at first. And they weren't sure who was going to like it. It turns out everybody loves it. Whether you're 22 years old or you're 75 years old or 80 years old, it's been a big hit for us.
And what about your Peacemaker, which, sounds very friendly and welcoming to be a peacemaker, but what about that Cabernet?
So it's a Merlot-based wine.
Oh, okay.
60% Merlot, 40% Cabernet Sauvignon. We don't put it on the bottle because we want the freedom to do whatever we want. But, one thing that's fun about wine is that often wine is celebrated through at important times in life, historic times. And I forget who the brilliant person was that said that world leaders should have these big meetings but have their kids included and realize decisions they're making today are really for their kids to inherit. And so that idea is that, Peacemaker is a wine that you can celebrate with. It's lush, it's juicy, it's really fun. In terms of a song, I'm not sure I know that one yet.
Maybe a genre?
It's not classical, it's not Western. It's definitely not Nirvana. Maybe it's Pearl Jam.
Oh, okay.
I love Eddie Vedder.
Well, there you go. 3 wines, 3 songs. You actually did that quite well for somebody who says he likes music but doesn't know specific songs. But no, that's great. Well, Craig, I have one more question for you. 2 answers, 2-part answer. First part is, what winemaking region in the world is at the top of your list that you want to go explore?
I've been there. France and Italy.
You want to go back?
Yeah. I want to go back to Italy. Yeah, it was, we did a road trip actually from Paris to Florence. It was amazing. But I can't tell you the difference between crossing the border from France into Italy, how much more accepting they were of children. It was like, there's no high chairs in Paris. There's nowhere for kids. They have dogs sitting at tables.
Yeah.
But when you cross over into Italy, they were like, this Rome restaurant we were in, they were like, we had to change our daughter's diaper. And they're like, no, you're going to change her on our dining room table. We're like, are you kidding me? Really? I mean, Italy's just how can you not love Italy?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a crazy political country. Well, maybe not as crazy as ours, but what a beautiful place, beautiful people, food's amazing, wines are fantastic. I mean, yeah, so those two I'd go back to. I've been to Mendoza, I've been, Argentina. Don't really have an itch to go to Chile. New Zealand, I heard it's great, but I don't want that flight. I've done the flight to Hong Kong. It's so long.
It's easy. You get on at like 11 at night. You're on the West Coast. You wake up 14 hours later and you're there. You sleep.
I can drink Sauvignon Blanc in the States. They would hate me for that.
They would hate you for that. There's beautiful Pinot, and on the North Island, they have some beautiful Bordeaux varieties. So,
again, is it the right variety for that climate, or is it just planted there?
You have to go and find out. Well, I know you don't want to get on a flight to New Zealand, but you should go back to France or Italy, I should say. And if somebody wants to come here to the Napa Valley, how can they find you? How can they taste your wines? What are their options to taste Priest Ranch wines?
We have two really great options. Priest Ranch Tasting Room here in Yountville. It's open 7 days a week, 10 to 5 or 10 to 6 or 10 to 7, depending on the day. And then the estate, which is this mind-blowing 3 square mile property with elevations that change from 800 feet to 1650, back down to 1200 feet, and back up to 1800 feet. So we really provide like what we call natural Napa Valley. It's a very natural, beautiful place. How do they find us? PriestRanchWines.com, SomerstonEstate.com.
So many different ways.
There's ways to reach us. Yeah.
Well, definitely worth reaching out. Start with that Grenache Blanc. Well, start with the bubbles, then go to the Grenache Blanc, and then go into the beautiful reds. Again, downtown Yountville, there's so many restaurants around. You can just stop in, have a tasting, and head to lunch, or vice versa. But, well, Craig, thank you so much for joining us on Wine Soundtrack. It's been really fun chatting with you, and I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great to see you, Allison.
You too.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.